Hello everybody, Adrian Plass here.
Yes, and Bridget. Hello.
And I believe it's 209 in Sounding the Shallows.
Yes, I think you might probably be right.
Yeah. So, someone sent me something. Some of the people who listen to this may realise, and some others perhaps don't, that I've been really trying to write limericks.
I think quite a lot of people will know that, Adrian, actually.
Yes,
it's been your 2024, I'm not going to say obsession, but I am going to say interest. How about that?
There can't be many people who have recently written, I think it's now 125 limericks.
Yes, well, I think you can call it an obsession.
All with a sort of vaguely biblical connection. But some of it has been great fun. But someone this last week sent me something. Now, it's written by someone called John Irwin, and I haven't been able to quite work out who he is or locate him. And I hope he won't mind me reading this. But he wrote a limerick about limericks. And what he's written about limericks is absolutely 100% true, and I do respect him for it. And it goes like this: a limerick's cleverly versed. The second line rhymes with the first. The third one is short. The fourth's the same sort, and the last line is often the worst. And that is absolutely true. You may get the rhymes right, you may get the meter right, but you've still got to have a last line that makes sense and actually does something. So thank you very much, John Irwin, and I would love to find out who you are, and I'm going to.
Well, I think that applies to the punchline of jokes, the final line in a poem generally, actually. Sometimes it just, things fade at the end, don't they?
It is true. People either can do a punchline or they can't. But the limerick is so precise that it's very hard to get it right. Anyway, I thought I'd do one of my limericks. Well, so this one is about the feeling we all have, that those who are Christians and sure lots of other people as well, who want to be persistent in our faith and not let God down. So it's a rather sad little prayer to him about that. Please rain on your little dry flowers. Refresh all our God-given powers. Like Arkwright on telly, we'll give it some welly and aim to stay open all hours.
Which is totally obscure, Adrian.
Yeah.
I know we have friends in Australia who listen to this, and we have people who you've met in Germany who listen to this. I think you've chosen a very obscure one.
It may be, but Germans, many Germans love British sitcoms.
Okay.
And I have to tell you, and I'm not sure I quite agree with this, but Open All Hours is the most popular sitcom for years. It wouldn't be my favourite. So
you have to go on even further, because Arkwright is who?
Arkwright is a shopkeeper who has a stutter and is very stubborn and keeps the shop open for hours so he can make more money.
Yes.
So he's a
I
bit
think
mean.
people in the UK will get it anyway.
Oh, well, who cares anyway? I don't care.
And I actually do like aim to stay open all hours.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
There are no real... hopefully we're not asked to, be open to the Holy Spirit all hours. It'd be quite nice to think that it's all right to switch off a bit. But that aim of being alert for any possibilities is a good one.
Well, it has been our experience, and it's a rather alarming one if you see it as a actual part of trying to be what you're claiming to be. That things happen sometimes at the worst possible times in the terms of human arrangement, or like the way Jesus was, you run into somebody who is suddenly, as we've often said, clearly the most important person in the world.
Yes.
And you can't say, well, actually we're, you can sometimes, and you have to, but you can't say, well, we're doing something else, not if you're presented with something that really does need
and you could do something. I think is the point.
And you can do something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, because of that, and thinking about all the stuff about making people laugh and all that, I was thinking about things that have made us laugh recently.
Come on.
And, well, one of them was, and I don't think we mentioned this last time, but we've been away for a while. And while we were away, we saw something truly remarkable. And probably other people have seen this. I hadn't, and you hadn't.
No.
But in the... it was near the marketplace in Norwich. There was a man who had strung a tightrope up between two towers made of poles.
And it's not a straight tightrope, is it?
No,
It was a curved rope.
It's a dipping tightrope, so
Right.
it isn't pulled taut so that you walk along the top of it.
No,
It's a bow. It's bowed, and
that's
so
it.
now this man. Now get this: those who think they might just have a go at that, he stands on it on one foot.
Yes, he does.
He occasionally balances with the other foot,
Yes, he does.
but most of the time he stands on. Right now, that in itself would be enough.
Yes.
But this man, while he's standing on one foot
It's the audacity.
on the tightrope, tell people what he does.
Well, he plays the violin. So here we are, and not only that, but if any image in your mind is of a young, fit, lithe person, this man is not young. He is slim, and I would imagine a circus performer or a dancer, I don't know. But it was ridiculously good. He stayed there for, I think, over an hour before coming down for a very short break, and then off he went again.
I don't know how long it was, but
No, it was a
he
long
he
time.
appeared to be. I did notice one thing. I was thinking about this while I was thinking about what we talk about. That he kept his head completely still.
Yeah.
And when you think of dancers like our daughter, and you used to do a lot of dancing. I mean,
Very
one
long
of the-
time ago.
One of the things you have to do is keep your eyes on a fixed point,
Yes,
don't you, when
yeah.
you pirouette? Or
Well,
do
I never
something
did
like
that, but yes, you're right.
But that's the idea, and
yeah.
I remember watching him, and his eyes were fixed on something.
Mm.
So it was a rather oddly stationary holding of his head shape
Yes.
or neck.
Yeah.
So
Anyway,
so after that, we thinking about this little miracle. Asked ourselves, how long would we, that is Bridget and I, be able to, never mind the violin or the tightrope, how long would we be able to stand on one foot on the floor?
yeah,
Never mind the tightrope.
we didn't do
How
too
long
well,
did you
we?
manage?
No, I hardly managed it at all, Adrian.
I think my memory tells me that you stood on one foot for about 8 seconds. And I, on the other hand, could not even lift my foot off the floor
No.
in order to stand on one
No,
foot.
but you know what, Adrian? I mean, I'm sure you know it, that God is capable of all things, and...
You might draw the line at getting me standing on
well,
one
I
foot.
thought of Abraham and Sarah and
Yeah.
the Red Sea, and then I thought of me standing on one leg on a rope playing the guitar, and I thought,
The
come on,
violin,
God.
Bridget,
The violin rather. And I
Yeah.
thought, come on.
Yes,
Be
I know.
realistic.
Yes. Well, anyway, if that need arises, and I can't see it in the near future, the other thing that made me laugh, which is not really connected with that, is about celebrations. And we've seen with the D-Day stuff, and not so much celebration, or some of it was celebration. But when you see people getting together and are truly excited and thrilled, what a wonderful thing it is to see it. And you don't often see it, do you? These huge celebrations of that kind. And then I thought of our dog. And what I thought was
Yes,
that
right. We
you-
leap now, don't we? From D-Day,
Particularly-
we leap from
yeah,
huge
particularly-
celebrations, things like
that's right, yeah.
football matches, and
Yeah.
we leap from all that.
When
to
you
our little dog.
when you come into the house, every Thursday, Bridget goes and works at the church cafe, and during the day I'm here with Gracie, who is our dog, and she is very good, and she sits quietly beside me, and twice in the day I say, "Oh, don't worry, she'll be back," and she knows the word "back" very well. In fact, she's probably reacted now. She knows that Bridget will come back, but when Bridget comes back, she goes, tell people what she actually does.
Well, I mean, I think anybody who's got a dog will know she goes completely, absolutely, ecstatically excited.
They don't all do what she does. Tell people
Well,
what she does.
what she does, I sit down, she leaps on me, she kisses all over my face, which I know some people will hate the idea of, and then she leaps up onto the back of this chair and starts all over again.
Yeah.
But you know what, Adrian, and again, I think people who love dogs will know this, it doesn't have to be a whole day, it can be 10 minutes
Yeah, it
of
can be
going
10
out.
minutes,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't mean just me either. I mean,
Yeah.
there's something about a dog that can rejoice in a way that
Yeah.
maybe we should learn from.
I love it. I just love it when
It's so
the way
funny.
she acts like. Also, the other thing about Gracie was that while we were away recently, we did an evening, which was a very enjoyable one, down in Orpington, and we somehow arrangements for looking after the dog went wrong, so we actually had to have the dog on stage with us. So Gracie was sitting on the stage in front of us as we sat on two stools, as quiet as a mouse.
I think
wasn't
we
she?
were just chatting. I think
Yeah,
she's used
yeah.
to us rambling on to each other at home, and there we were just rambling on. I don't think she noticed the audience or
No.
or anything really.
I hope
yeah.
people enjoy it. I thought it was enchanting. She just lay there with her nose between her paws quite a lot of the
Yeah,
time,
she did.
looking out over.
She might not have done, can I say? There have been other occasions where
yeah,
we have
that's
hoped she
right.
would behave like that, and it has not happened. So it was a bit nerve-wracking, but it was okay. Yeah.
It was in the end, and that time away that we've just had was very interesting in one particular way, because we had planned to see a number of people
Yeah,
and
relatives
go,
and friends. Yeah.
and therefore go to a couple of different places, and that's fine. So, but I mean, for instance, because the sat nav screwed up once or twice rather badly.
I think the sat-nav would say, "I beg your pardon."
Or I would say, go and put yourself somewhere where you think you should be directed to. But we were doing huge loops,
We just seem to be.
and we ended up, right, to start with, going through, not necessarily in this order, but going through a place called Rust Hall, which is where I grew up, or right on the edge of it. And we went down a road called the Coach Road into the village of Rust Hall, which is how we used to go home from school every day. And I hadn't realised we were going to go there, and that took me back with just a jerk of memory. Very strange feeling, and later
Well, then
on,
when we got home, we sort of went through it, didn't we? Because we found, the more we thought about this journey, that it pretty well summed up our lives, really.
yeah,
I mean,
that's
we
right.
when we were working in Orpington, we needed to find somewhere where we could stay with the dog, and the nearest place was Bromley. And Bromley is a place that we lived for 4 years. You did your teaching qualification because there wasn't a social work qualification.
that's
I did
right.
some teaching, and we had a wonderful time with a youth group, many of whom are still our friends.
That's right, yeah.
And our eldest son was born.
Well, eldest
there.
son was born in near Orpington,
Yeah,
and it
he
was,
was.
and I remember that very well because while you had to be in the ward for quite a long time, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I wasn't very good at being pregnant. No, you're right.
And I was I had a job in the as a cleaner in the hospital, which will interest those who know.
Well, that's what you can
My
do when you're a
record.
student, isn't it?
Yes,
you can
yeah.
take your holiday and.
So
yeah.
there we are. We've been to Rust Hall. We've been to Bromley in this trip. We've been to Orpington, and talking about the man who stood on the played the violin.
Yeah,
We went to Norwich.
which is where I grew up. And what was actually quite moving, really, Adrian. I mean, it was such a strange juxtaposition, because yeah, that's our phone just gone off. We've stopped it, so there we are. It was such a strange juxtaposition because it was right outside the bank. Now, the bank was where my dad.
Now, which bank?
Well, I don't have to say which.
Yes, you
all
do.
right, Lloyd's Bank,
Yeah,
right. And that's where my dad
Mm.
worked from when he was 16 to when he retired. Not that branch, but that branch he certainly worked from when he came back from the war, so 1945, up until he retired. And that bank was such a grand place. And I remember as a little girl, as I stood there watching the violinist standing on his rope, I also thought about the bank and going with my mother into the bank, and you went through a revolving door. And I know anybody who can look back at their childhood, small childhood, will remember what a strange thing it was. And then it was so high, all the places where you actually went to talk about your money, because of course there were no ATMs then, so all the business was done in the bank, was so high. And as a small child you stood looking up, and then my daddy might appear.
Yes.
And it seemed so grand and so important, although his job, I know, wasn't that grand, well, I think it was important, but it wasn't grand.
You thought about him quite a lot while we were away, didn't you?
Yes, I did, because as a child you can't understand, really. He'd moved after the war to Norwich, which is where my mother had grown up, and her family were there. And, I think the bruising of the war, and then a feeling of he'd lived in Lancashire all his young life, and Norwich was a much bigger city and a different place, and I don't think he was confident enough to really grow in that place.
Right.
But we all can look back on our childhoods and think, if only I'd understood more, I would have understood his struggles. I mean, how can we? We're children. When we're children, we cannot really understand. We can only try to, and I don't think we get it right very often.
It's a real long-term battle, I must say.
Of course it is.
Yeah, and from we also, in fact, were on the edge of Hailsham, which is where all our children grew up.
Hang on. Our holiday was near Hailsham. We're getting very confused
we're
here.
going down now to where we were on holiday. But
Yeah.
Hailsham was where all the children grew up.
Yeah.
So we were there for 30 years, I think.
Yes. Well, we got to the point where
the memories there are just too many to.
I remember very well when they were growing up, and I know people who've got children or had children will understand this. It was their home, and so when we talked about leaving, they were just going to stay there and camp.
Yes.
There's no way. And then after they'd all left and either gone to university or gone to do something else, or maybe things weren't working out too well with them somewhere else, but they couldn't understand why we were still there. And I think that's a pattern a lot of people will understand.
It's familiar.
It's very strange to remember all these things.
I found it really strange seeing all these plays. We hadn't intended to. And then we went down to Sussex, where...
Well, that is where we were.
South of there.
No, we...
hold on, where are we?
No, you're getting lost. We were in Hailsham.
Oh, that's right, the other way around, yeah.
We were then on the way back.
Yeah, but I was going to say, while we were in Sussex, we met friends, and we realised how many pubs we knew. Do you remember? We suddenly thought there's
yes, we did.
Huge list of pubs that we were very familiar with.
Some of which were very disappointing now. But we went on our favourite walks. If anybody knows Sussex, they will know one of the most beautiful places is where the Cuckmere River meanders down to the sea at a place called the Exeat. And we found you could go in your power chair, and we could still, even though we couldn't walk it, we could enjoy just being there. Yeah.
It was very nice seeing family and friends during all that time, and we also just managed to stop at Tunbridge Wells on our way back up north.
Well, we manoeuvred it.
And we had breakfast in the Pantiles, which was one of my favourite places when we were there.
And once you've got that image in your mind, you've got to think that on our way to Norwich we had lunch.
Well, hold on, I was just going to say that while I was sitting in the Pantiles, I found myself looking round to see if there was anybody I might recognise, until I suddenly realised that they would be 75 or 76, which is a bit strange.
Yeah. I did think, that, I mean, it's hard. It's a mixture. It's a mixture of some regrets, some wrong directions, some good directions, some interesting coincidences. And one of the most interesting was maybe one of the most bizarre. And I'm thinking, Adrian, of this is such a mixture of things, but before we came to Bromley, we had worked with children in Gloucestershire. And there goes the phone again. And it there we go. And it was important for you to get a qualification, wasn't it? Which is why we knew you had to go to teacher training college to get this social work equivalent qualification. How could we decide where to go? This was the most random thing I think that we did. We had no idea, and we looked at the map of England and we looked at colleges, and eventually you applied to a college in the north of England.
In Ormskirk. Yeah.
You then got a letter from Bromley, which said you'd been accepted in the college there. We had not applied to, but we had worried a lot about being a long way from your mother, who'd been bereaved and who we adored. Suddenly, we were only a very short distance away. We don't have many miracles, I suppose, but that was one of the bizarre things.
I don't know what it was. Yeah, it was very strange. I found it, the whole trip, really a bit of an emotional upheaval. But it did remind me. We haven't gone much longer. So we could talk about this forever, this trip. But I was remembering something Richard Wurmbrand wrote, which he was a pastor in Romania who was imprisoned for 14 years, I think, because of his faith. He was imprisoned by the communists, and he made the point that faith is not an acquisition but a direction. And I suppose he was saying we kind of say you do this and you do that, and then you've got it, and now you start being it, and it will be easier, and it's not, and you don't, and what you're actually faced with is direction after direction after direction. And if you're frightened, you might not choose another direction. You might stick in the same place. But it is a bit like that. I don't know. But I wondered, about us as two people who spent most of our lives growing up together, making decisions about these directions. Maybe you just have to accept who you are and what you are. And keep your eyes open and your ears open for the next one of these. And
maybe not be afraid to go down your own journey of different places. I don't mean physical journey. This just happened to be that. But allow yourself to look at the moments when you've regretted decisions you've made, changes in direction that might not have been right. And thank God that somehow you're still on some track somewhere, even if it's not at all where you set out to be.
I am very glad of that, but I think the old idea that I should know what I'm doing and where I'm going is very deeply embedded in me.
Okay.
I don't own it now at all, because I know life is not like that. And in fact, I was thinking today that, Jesus is recorded as being shocked, amazed, thrilled, close to despair during his life. And the decisions he made, I don't know how he made them, but there were many different ones. I just wonder
some
what
that nobody understood, like going to Jerusalem.
What he made of the journey. Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah. So I don't know. It's left me with a sort of feeling that I ought to look back and sort things out. And then, as you said, what is the point of that? You can't change the past. You can accept it. And I do feel for those who, because of relationships as a child or whatever, they've left them in a really difficult place, because I have some of that in me, I think. But I'm glad we went, and I'm glad we took those directions, and I'm glad we're thinking about it now.
Even if we didn't love the sat-nav all of the time.
No, we love it a lot of the time, don't we? Anyway, we are.
Love to hear from you.
Yeah. Tell us about your directions if you want. Okay. God bless you. Bye-bye.